What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is The Flash, Season 4, Episodes 11 and 12, The Elongated Night Rises, and Honey, I Shrunk Team Flash. These title names definitely sound a little bit silly, which, to be fair, is kind of the feel of these two episodes, if I'm being honest. And not that silly can't be good, but I think based on what's going on right now with The Flash, I feel like it's kind of a departure from what the rest of the season has given us. With the thinker and the seriousness of the situation, the difficulty of going through that trial, the Flash having to make the hard decision of going to jail, all of that stuff. It just kind of feels like these two episodes sort of departed from that and just said, yeah, screw it, let's just have some fun. Which I don't necessarily mind. It's just for this season so far, it doesn't fit. So let's talk about the first one, The Elongated Night Rises. This one is pretty much all about Dibney and giving him a bit more of a purpose for the team. So, yeah, it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect when you think of a clumsy, goofy guy turns into a superhero. Everything that you think would happen happens. He's very cocky, he's very arrogant. He saves some people. He manages to stop a guy who threatens to blow himself up along with some hostages. And of course, he gets on TV. He's all like, "Yeah, I'm the best. I'm the new sexy superhero on the street." I'm just like, stop. You're not at all. And I will say I'm a little bit disappointed just because I feel like we got somewhere with Dibney in the episode before this. When he's talking to Joe about planting evidence and all that stuff. It felt like he had sort of grown a little bit as a character, and then at the start of this, back to the same old Dibney. By the end of it, there is some growth, but it feels like growth that we've already seen in some other episodes. So I'm just worried that they're doing this up and down thing where he grows one episode and then he's back down to the same old Dibney. Then he grows again and then he's back down to the same Dibney. I don't want a character like that. I've seen characters like that before in some other, like kids shows where it feels like they learned something, and then the next episode that lesson is forgotten, and they're back to the same old character we've grown to know. And so I do want to see some growth out of Dibney. So basically, for most of this episode, it's all about the trickster's son. His mom breaks him out of jail. Disappointed not to see Mark Hamill, but I assume when they filmed this, he was probably busy filming Star Wars. I assume they happened probably around the same time. So not too disappointed to not see him if it meant he got to be there. But yeah, so his mom breaks him out. Apparently, she was also. I assume they got the same actress from the original Flash show. I didn't actually check to see if it was her. But apparently, it was the trickster's wife, Prank. And so she breaks her son out of prison and pretty much tries to help him go on it. Well, first she tries to help him get away from the life of crime and start a new life together, which I did find pretty interesting to see that was her original intention. But whenever her son just starts doing whatever he wants and she realizes she can't sway him, she stops taking her meds, go figure, and then goes and helps him start this whole fight between him and Dibney because Dibney is the new hero on the streets. So, long story short, basically Dibney goes through an arc where he's scared because the trickster has some acid that can apparently hurt him, which is the first thing that's been able to hurt him this whole time. That scares him a little bit, so he goes to talk to Barry. He's like, "I'll break you out, and then you can go stop this guy, so I don't have to worry about it." And Barry gives him a little speech about, hey, a good mortality check can be a good thing, because it lets you realize that if you rise above that, it's a much greater victory than if you just run away when you can do something to help. And so Dibney does end up finding the courage to go help, nearly sacrifices himself, but Harry, he manages to kind of stabilize the acid, neutralize it before it can hurt him. So doesn't actually end up sacrificing himself, but he was going to. And I think that's the point of this whole episode is he did find that arc of if it means I'm going to die, I'm willing to do it as long as it means saving my friends. So, like I said, there is growth, but I feel like it's growth we've seen in other episodes. And then at the beginning of this one, it was already gone. So, just a small problem, but we'll see where it goes from here. On Barry's side of things, we see him in prison. He's just there trying to not get into too much trouble, but of course, trouble finds him. These guys just see him as the new guy and want to just beat him up because that's how prison is in TV shows. And so, yeah, that's what happens. They try to beat him up. This guy steps in, big guy called Serb, and so he helps him out. And we find out that apparently Barry's father helped save him when Henry was in prison. So that was a pretty interesting story. I did enjoy getting to see a guy like that who truly did respect somebody and save Barry's life because of it. But ultimately, what this leads to is we do see this sort of friendship-ish happening. Barry sees some guys beating him up because he's been helping Barry, and so Barry goes in, steps in, and helps him. And so that's pretty much where it leaves off. We go into the next episode, and Barry's trying to help this guy get out of prison because apparently he is an innocent man. And go figure, it also turns out that the metahuman in this episode, who's a guy who can shrink things, he apparently is the one that committed the crime. What a coincidence. They do make a very good point, though, of saying that, yeah, this all seems coincidental, but Harry thinks this is too much of a coincidence. It's all got to be a part of DeVoe's plan. And so I do like the fact that they're not just treating it all as like, oh, what a coincidence, guys. It just happened to happen. They are actually saying, no, this could be a part of the Thinker's plan. We need to treat this with the care it deserves. So, all that happens in this episode with the metahuman is Cisco and Dibney get shrunk down to little size. Harrison Wells thinks he's figured out a way to reverse engineer this the speed bazooka to be able to reverse them and bring them big again, but then it just turns out he's going to blow them up on accident, and so they have to get them unshrunk by the guy, and they do it. They manage to capture him, and he says, I'm not going to testify. You know, if you want a confession, go get a priest. So, unfortunately, they're not able to get the guy out of prison, but Barry manages to get him out because he's been talking to him for most of this episode about, you know, oh, we're going to get you out. It's going to happen, I promise you. And then when it doesn't, he feels bad. And so at night, he heard about this guy wanting to go to China, this place in China. And so he gets him out of the prison cell while the cameras aren't looking, takes him all the way to China, and then runs back in before the camera can look at him. But in steps the warden, and he says, you know, when you were talking about getting this guy out, I had a camera placed right next to your cell. I know who you are now. And pulls up a picture of these lightning moving across. He's like, you're the Flash. And then knocks him out with this drug and throws him away, which we find out, I noticed, or I remember from the first half of the season, I remember one of the metas from the bus getting locked up in Iron Heights by this guy, and he had like this evil grin on. I was like, what was that about? Well, we find out apparently he's the one selling metahumans to Amunet, and so he's going to sell Barry, the Flash, to Amunet. Pretty interesting. This does raise one problem, though. Consistency. We see Barry use his powers all the time in front of people. You know, he did it in the courtroom and brought Iris into the time freeze place with him. He did it in front of the guys whenever he was cheating in the card game. He's done it all these different times in front of people, and yet the camera manages to catch him. I don't understand. You know, maybe he's doing a different type of running there that can be seen, but I don't know. I just feel like if a camera can see him doing that, but nobody else can, that doesn't really feel right. It doesn't. The camera catches the lightning as he's running. I feel like everybody else should see that lightning too. I mean, we see it. So, I don't know. It raises a consistency problem that I don't know if they're going to address. But I find it a little bit lazy on the writer's parts. You know, like I feel like if there had been some sort of other way to do it, you know, other way to catch him doing it, whether he like vibrates through the bars first and then goes and gets him, that would have been a different way that would have made more sense because the camera would have seen him vibrating through the bars. But to just have it catch the lightning makes me think, well, why can't anybody else see that? Why can the camera see it? It is a problem, you know, and it's something that I'm not going to turn a blind eye to. I have to say, hey, address this, but it's not a show-breaking problem, and that's something that I've noticed about the Flash is that whenever there are problems, they're kind of minuscule, but this one is a little bit bigger than most of the problems I've had with the show before, so I do hope they address it at some point, because it feels like nobody's been able to see the lightning through all of these 4 seasons. Nobody's been able to see that whenever it happens, and so now it feels like, well, why can you see it on the camera? Why is that a thing? So anyway, I think that's about it over these 2 episodes. You know, they're fairly straightforward. You know, one is just all about Dibney. The other one's all about this guy who, you know, Barry's trying to get this other guy that his dad helped out of prison, and it involves a metahuman that shrinks Cisco and Dibney. I mean, it's not really much to talk about. Final thing, forgot to talk about because I just don't know what to think about it, and it kind of feels like a non-factor at this point, but maybe it'll come into play later. Yeah, probably the strangest turn this season has taken so far is what's her name? I forget her name now. Cecile, of course. Cecile is a psychic. I don't know. Don't look to me for answers. I don't know what's going on here. Just all of a sudden at the beginning of this the second episode, she's just like, I do not look fat in this. And then she's just like, I'm not saying anything. She's like, oh my gosh, I can read your thoughts. Couple things I'm thinking. One, we do know that the conception of the baby happened around the time Barry was released from the Speed Force. It could be, they said the baby, there's no dark matter in the baby. They're also saying that maybe the baby is what caused this latent dark matter in her that happened when the particle accelerator exploded. Maybe it caused that to rise up or something. My opinion is, if it turns out to be something like that, where she actually has psychic powers, I'll be pretty disappointed. I'll feel like, okay, come on. That was just kind of stupid to throw this in out of nowhere. There is a possibility, though, that maybe somehow Clifford managed to transfer his psychic ability to her and is actually using her as a conduit to read everybody's mind so he knows what's going on with them. Although I will... Did they find the camera? I can't remember if they found the camera inside of the place yet. I feel like they did. The one inside the samurai helmet that he was using to spy on them. I feel like he did, so maybe not. But I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. Because it's psychic abilities, I feel like we know Clifford, when he took over Dominic's body, he got his psychic powers. I feel like that has to be connected somehow. It can't just be, oh, she just got psychic powers. It feels way too planned for it to be just random. If it turns out to be random, I'll be very disappointed. If it turns out it's part of DeVoe's plan, well, that could be a lot more interesting. And I would be very interested to see if he could actually read minds through somebody else who also gets the experience. Just a thought, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it's going. I'm hoping next episode is going to be a little bit more story driven. I want to say, I'm going to look this up really fast just to make sure. Okay, so after the next episode, which I missed, I think, was that last week? Or last night? That was last night. So yeah, after last night's episode, it's going to be a couple weeks before we get the next one. I feel like this next episode has to be a little bit more story driven, because these past two were not. That's all I'm hoping for, because these two are just very strange, and I want to see something better. But anyway, so that's it for me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these two episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Flash reviews. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.